Welcome to another broadcast of The Competitive Edge. Once again, I have two dynamic persons in the studio today, and they're going to be giving you a lot of information to help you achieve the competitive edge. But just before I come to Peter and Paul, I want to say that this program comes to you with the kind compliments of Global Capital Inc., Pitch Deck 101 LLC, and 10X B&M LLC out of New York. Today, we are looking at a very topical issue, and we are going to be looking at leadership in the context of access to capital, master planning, and business startups. So, we're going to be covering a number of critical areas, and I want to ensure you to settle in. I want to encourage you to call a friend, tell a friend that the competitive edge is on across social media platform, and they should join. All right. So, Paul, Peter, how are you guys? Great to have you here today, my friends.
Good
Doing good.
to be here.
I
Good.
know, I know. I just came from Timbuktu. I had to bring Peter from Timbuktu,
Well, we're going again. We got to get this every now and again. Yes, every now and again.
and I have my good friend Paul. I mean, who is I'm going to call him today the Millionizer because he has a vision. He really want to empower people to become, millionaires and beyond. So, welcome the Millionizer. How are you,
No,
my friend?
correct here. He said that he's not the millionizer, he's a billioниzer. So get
He's
it.
a Millionizer.
Well, that's what we all want to do. We all want it for ourselves. We want to stack the cash, but we want to teach people how to do it too. And we want to be like Oprah when she's giving away books.
Yeah,
You're
you got
a millionizer, you're a millionizer, and you're a millionizer.
All right.
Well, I take it 100% and above. All right, folks. Today, as I said, it's going to be a very exciting program. And so I want to encourage you to just call a friend, tell a friend that we are here. And in the meanwhile, I'm just going to run a few ads. So call a friend, tell a friend the competitive edge is here.
Win LLC out of New York do more than just support our clients to pitch their businesses to investors access working capital at 0% APR. We also support our clients to grow and scale their businesses faster and cash flow optimize. Pitch Deck 101 LLC recent partnership with 10X Branding Marketing LLC and Global Capital Inc. out of the USA has enabled us to form unique partnership with multiple financial institutions, which means we can do even more to accelerate the success of our clients. Let Pitch Deck 101 LLC give you the support you need to pitch to investors, access capital, access new markets and grow and scale your business. Contact us now on 332 235 1099 for a free consultation. The High Net Worth Investor's Guide, where art meets science. Explore tools, processes, and systems that empower you to accelerate your journey to a seven-figure business. Access smart funding solutions for 6 and 7-figure enterprises. Harness capital for multiple income streams. Master the art and science of debt mitigation to build wealth faster. Experience comprehensive business support to propel your success at a budget that suits you. The High Net Worth Investor's Guide is tools, processes, and systems that influences success. With 10X Branding and Marketing LLC, our expert team specializes in enhancing your brand's visibility and connecting you with your ideal clients. We employ strategies that increase reach, leaving a lasting impact and driving client conversion. Trust and credibility are vital in businesses and excel in building them even with a limited budget. Our cost-effective approaches ensure you get the best results without overspending. Ready to boost your business cash flow? Contact us at 332 235 T99 and let 10X Branding and Marketing LLC guide you to success. Our focus is on elevating your visibility, which directly translates to growth. Experience the power of effective branding and marketing with us and witness your business thrive.
Okay, welcome back to the competitive edge. Now, as I said before we went to the commercial break, that today we're going to be focusing on leadership. but leadership in the context of how it relates to capital access and capital management, how it relates to master planning and business startup success. Now, I'm going to jumpstart the conversation by looking at a concept that we call proactive leadership. I just don't want you to be a leader. I want you to be proactive. And I love proactive leadership, not only because it's a term that we have coined, but because it has a lot of significance in helping you to develop the right leadership attitude. And I will go a little bit into it today. Proactive leaders, they have three essential characteristics. And you, the listening audience, I would love for you to take notes of this because this can be very transformational for your life. The three essential characteristics that proactive leaders have: one, they think ahead. All right. They are not reacting, they are proactive, they are thinking ahead. The second characteristics that they have is that they see beyond problems. The majority of people, you have big dreams and hopes and aspirations. But then when you start to look at the journey to get there, you see the challenges, you see the problems. You see, I don't have access to capital. I don't have access to the right people. I don't have access to the technical resources. I didn't born with the gold spoon. Where is my fairy tale god, mom and dad? You see all of these challenges. But proactive leaders, they see beyond the problems. Our mission here with the information that we're going to provide to you is to position you to get beyond the get beyond the problem zone. And we have experts like Peter and Paul, who's now is going to billionize you. So we have those type of expertise that is willing and passionate to give you that type of support. And the last essential characteristics of the proactive leaders is that they're able to take informed action, not just action. There's major differences between taking action and informed action. It's like when I talk to Paul and I say, Paul, hey, I need to access debt capital or equity capital. I know that I'm talking to someone who understands the market. So if I have never dealt in the private equity investment space, I might be taking action, but taking action is not going to give me the results that I want. But when I talk to Paul, because Paul has been dealing in this field for many years, he, with a click of a finger, he's able to get me access and get me the funding that I need to move that process forward. And that's the difference between taking action and informed action. Peter is the kind of person that you might want to say, hey, I'm developing my master plan. But have you ever done this before? Have you done it in the right way? What is the results? Peter is the kind of person that's going to say to you, yes, look at your history, but also do your income audit analytics. Have you ever done your income audit analytics? What is your income against your expenditure against your balance sheet against your future plans and smart investment strategy? Do you have all of this? And this is where the ability to take informed action comes in. Peter and his team will position you to be able to take these type of practical steps to get your competitive edge. So I just want to give that intro to today's program, and then I want to throw the questions so we all can look at it. And the question I want to start with is, what in your definition is leadership, and how this leadership applies to the area of specialties that you have? I know Peter focused a lot on master planning. I know Paul focused a lot on financial instruments. How does leadership ties in? And let me jumpstart with finance, because knowing how to access finance, knowing that entire ecosystem, it can be something that can make or break, because you may have a master plan, but then you don't have the capital to jumpstart the process. On the flip side, you have the capital, but then you don't have the master plan to move the process forward. It's like the chicken and the egg. So we're going to do that deep dive today. Paul, what are your thoughts on leadership and its importance to what we're discussing today. You're muted, my friend. We have to open up that billionaire mic.
Yeah. Well, it's always important, whether it's this subject or any or all of the other subjects. Strong leadership's important. Decisive action, proactive action, and doing the right actions. So, as it relates to capital access and management and business startups, and bringing in exactly what Peter would say, you got to have a master plan for both of those. And when you have that master plan and you put it into place, what is the master plan to access if you're a business owner? Well, it's probably to go to the bank because they're experts. The business owners, not the expert. Finance is a mystery. Somebody else is the expert. You know what I'm saying? I'm an expert. The guy at the bank's an expert. But the founder of the company, the leader of the company, he's probably not an expert in finance. So you go to an expert, connect, consult, work with, because an expert will direct you in the best path. Hypothetically, they're supposed to. Will they all? No. That's why you got to have, wide vision to where if you see something, if you go to a lender and it's too expensive or it's not the right program. And I gave you guys a real life example the other day. The lady, brand new in the business. No, she wasn't even in business to start a trucking company. And her bank loan officer was talking to her about a line of credit. No, you don't buy equipment with a line of credit anyways. And it's completely the wrong product. So as a leader, you got to recognize when something's wrong also. Collect the information, analyze it. If it's wrong, maybe go find somebody else to work with or switch gears. But as it relates to a business startup, boy, it's even more intense there that you have to be a leader if it's a startup, because there's so much more to do. We talked the other day about, should you buy an existing business or should you do a startup? Whatever you're best at. Start coming into existence. So, just leadership is completely critical in every aspect. You can't go wrong. And especially related to capital access, you don't want to sign a bad deal. And I'll give you one last example. There's, the Clubhouse app, right? When you're on the Clubhouse app and you're in these rooms talking about investment money, nobody talks about the Securities and Exchange Commission. They don't say it. They don't say the words. Nobody tells the people in the Clubhouse rooms or on LinkedIn or on Instagram, anywhere else, that it costs money to raise money. How can anybody expect to go get 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, 600 million and not pay a dime and expect a capital raise group to do all the work and then get paid at the end of it? That's a fantasy. And as a leader, hearing that information, you should be able to discern that sounds like that's a fantasy. It doesn't even sound realistic. So, leadership is required all the time, everywhere. You need it. And if you don't have it, you're not going to be successful.
Well, that was definitely an insightful share. I want to say something, but just before I come to that, I'm going to talk briefly about the SEC, which you have hinted on, the Security Exchange Commission, because it's so important for people to understand that. The SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, is a regulatory body. It didn't exist before 1934, and it's largely because a whole host of jittery pokery was taking place. That's a new word, right? Jittery pokery was taking place.
I'm writing that one down. Maybe poker.
When you are, if you're, you have it, when you have your doctorate, and then you're allowed to make your own words.
Apparently. Look at that puzzled look on Peter's face. That's awesome.
It's not, it may not be exclusive as you think it is, right? Yeah, so because of all the financial, shenanigans that was taking place, the Security Exchange was formed, and it was formed to carry out four main functions. One, they had a division of corporate finance, and that look at broad financial instruments and the regulatory systems. They also had another department that looks at the trading and markets. And trading and market is where you have derivatives, you have this, uh, daily financial transaction that are taking place. Um, Third, they had the investment management. That's another area. And last but not least, they had the department that looks at enforcement. At the right time, we can do a deeper dive into all of this to really expand on it, so as to help the listening audience to understand uh, what we are discussing. Because what is Paul is also hinting is that when he bring his financial partners to fund you, they all are governed by these principles, the SEC. They all are subject to the laws and standards of operation of the SEC. So they're operating above par. So I just wanted to bring that point out. Paul, I want to take also add into what you would have said early on. I think financial leadership is so important. I see it from so many different standpoints, and that is why Paul, on our platform, we would say to people, it's not enough to understand financial instruments. All right. But when you apply leadership in this context, when you apply proactive leadership to financial management, we need to ask ourselves, is this the best instrument that I'm using? Just like you were hinting. Taking a trade line, if you don't understand what you're doing, it may be the worst decision that you have ever made financially, and you may not be able to quickly recuperate from that unless you have the expertise on your side to navigate the rough terrains, because interest may start to calculate so fast on that, because different than debt financing, and you end up choking yourself. So financial leadership is being able to look at that financial instrument and do the analysis, do that stress test from different standpoint, to ensure that you're making the best decision. But the thing about it is that not being an expert in financial access and financial leverage, you may not know how to do this. And that is why having the expertise on your side, a mentor, a coach, a consultant that is dealing with these instruments, to help you to navigate it. The beauty, again, I'm saying to you, you don't have to work with us. All right. You can find the expert next to you. All right. But this is what makes us different. We're not here just talking about access to capital and capital leverage. We're not just talking about it in theory. Paul deals with this every single day of his life. So while you understand the theory, you understand the application of financial instrument, because he interfaces with this on a daily basis. The same across the board. Everyone here, we are not just, when we talk about a particular subject, we're not talking about it in isolation of the practical tools that one should understand. So with us, you're going to be able to understand the theory, but along with that, you will be able to understand the practical tools. And that combination is something that can definitely give you the competitive edge. So that's just a little bit that I wanted to add to what you would have said. Paul, in closing on that comment, you need to understand financial instruments. You need to understand how to access it. the right portfolios that you should be accessing. You need to understand how to leverage smart capital leverage because there's pitfalls there. And again, the last one, if no one in your ecosystem is telling you about capital mitigation, believe me, you may be leaving the negotiation table not with crumbs on the table, but with perhaps half or three-quarter of that cake on the table. And I literally means this because with debt mitigation, you're able to reduce the cost of capital. You're able to exit your debt portfolio early on. You're able to leverage your excess liquidity into smart income producing asset. All of this can take place in the debt mitigation. But if you don't know, you just don't know. Get the expert on your side to give you that support. Again, you don't have to come to us. We just want to give you that information. So moving forward, you know decisions that you should be making to ensure that you have the competitive edge. So that's just a little bit, Paul.
Can I add one thing, Gary, please?
Go ahead, right ahead.
Thank you. First, stop telling them they don't have to come with us. They do. I'm just kidding. Joking.
Okay.
We want them all. I'm just joking on that.
Okay.
A tale of two leaders. Okay, you got two leaders there, and one leader knows about the Securities and Exchange Commission because he's trying to raise, investment money for his startup or for growth capital for his existing business. He knows that because somebody told him. Who was that somebody? Could have been a friend. He could have read it and just understood it and known it because he's looking over information. He could have hired a consultant that let him know that information. But the point is, he knows it. Okay. And he's not in danger because he's going to raise capital correctly, legally, and he's not going to be in any danger of civil or criminal penalties because there are civil and criminal penalties. Give all the money back. I spent the 10 million. It don't matter. Give it back because that's what they're going to want. And then the other leader, he doesn't know it at all. And he's on Clubhouse or he's on LinkedIn or he's somewhere or he's talking to his sisters, brothers, mothers, uncles, next door cousin, trying to get that person to invest money into his company. Okay. He doesn't know this yet. He's trying to get money thinking that he can just get money, write it down on paper and pay the person back. But that guy, he doesn't know it because number one, nobody told him, and nobody told him because he didn't ask. He didn't study the subject. A quick Google search will tell you that, what we're telling you. Or he didn't hire a consultant to guide him on the path. You hire a consultant to take you down the path you've never been. And the person who doesn't know that information, the second leader, he's in a world of danger. Because what happens is if you take investment money and you don't do it correctly and legally, and there's a process to that, and that person that you invested the money into your company, all they have to do, pick up the phone, call the Securities and Exchange Commission and say, Joe didn't tell me this. He told me this. He didn't tell me it would take this long. Even if you did tell him it would take this long. No, he didn't tell me that. That causes a problem. That's an immediate problem that you're going to have to pay money to attorneys to solve. And you better hope that they can solve it, because if they can't solve it, then you got to give all that money back, and you potentially have criminal penalties. You definitely have civil penalties, but you potentially have criminal penalties. So a tale of two leaders right there.
Yep. Peter, in terms of master planning, the way that I'm saying this, everything that we're talking about here is an essential part of the master plan. What I like about the master plan is it in of itself is proactive leadership, because it causes you to think ahead of the outcome that you want. And based on the outcome that you want, you then develop the right mindset, the right thought processes. You build the right relationships to get the right information. But how mindset plays into all of this from your perspective, Peter?
Well, let's me first say welcome to all those who are tuning into the competitive edge. And when we are, or since we're talking to individuals who are prospective business owners, or maybe or already business owners or entrepreneurs, or individual who has this passion that they would love to go into business, we can just put it into context of how the thing we're listening to Paul as he speaks about having advisors, and raising capital, and the dangers of a person raising capital without understanding the pitfalls, or the conditions that surrounding doing it correctly. All right, well, let us put that in the context of what it is when a person has or going into a business. All right, for a person, and as you mentioned, that this conversation is directed to individuals who are for startup. All right, so for a person who is going into a start, who is in at the startup stage of their business, there are certain natural things or certain natural processes that individual will have to go through the stages. And so the first stage is going to be that you mentioned it already, Gary, Paul, you mentioned it already, leadership, right? And leadership is the leader of the entity. He's the visionary. He's a person, or she's a person with the passion. They realize that there is some gap in the marketplace that is needed, and they feel as if they have a product or service that is going to fill that gap, and they now want to go do what it is that they do best. But the first thing that individual need to do, they need to have do research and development. You have to do research. You have to research, even if a person is, as Paul mentioned, if you're going, a person can either start a business or they buy a business. Even if you're going to buy a business, research and development is essential. Then they're going to do marketing. Marketing is going to be necessary. Then having good marketing is going to lead to sales. Having sales and products you're now managing, and you have good sales coming in, it's going to be necessary that you have a good management system to manage everything that you're doing. You're going to need to have distribution, a great distribution and the manager is going to help to regulate great distribution. And once you have customers, you're going to need to have good customer relationships, and good customer relationship is going to lead to customer retention. That system right there is the basic process for any startup. If you're going to do a startup, you're going to need to have that. You don't just jump in. You got to know these are the natural steps or stages that are necessary if you're going to be successful in business and as an entrepreneur. So what we recommend is that, master planning is essential, because the issue is that you don't know what you don't know. You might know that you're good at a particular skill or a set of disciplines that will solve a matter. But the more you know, what you also discover is that the more you don't know. So now what we encourage individuals to do is to do master planning. It's essential. And master planning is, as you mentioned, Gary, there is the proactive, you got to be proactive. So it comes back to leadership. Leadership is essential. You, the individual, the person who has the passion to get out into the marketplace, to find that solution, that itch that they have concerning, wanting to get into business. The leadership standard, the leadership process, the leadership ability is the number one. Because every other process or stage that I mentioned a while ago, it's dependent upon leadership. Any organization, family, it is dependent upon leadership. But there's another kind of leadership that I like, and it is called personal leadership, because that's where it always starts. When an individual can look at themselves, and this is why we encourage about the personal life, because everything is going to go right back to your personal life, master plan. You do a deep dive on yourself as an individual. Who am I to solve this problem? Because really and truly, it is not so much as of who you are right now, because the problem that is out there, who you are right now, is going to require that you become somebody else in order to solve that problem effectively. So you will have to change, because problems and circumstances and all the dynamics, and because it's so elusive, then you now have to begin to now see yourself differently, and begin to and one of the things that you're going is necessary is that network development. Because if you're going to solve a problem, as you discover, and the master plan, and this is why we stress the master plan is going to give you to understand that, yes, you have this is what you do have, but this is what you don't have. And in order for you to equate or to mitigate what you don't have, you're going to need a network. And you now have to find individuals. And as Paul was mentioning earlier, there are so many pitfalls going out there, because you see the grass is green on the other side, but what you do not see is the amount of challenges that it's going to take in order for you to get to the other side. So you have to have a network of individuals. So that this is why it is very important. It is very important, because there's so much to it, that you need to have a master plan that is going to give you all the vision. It is going to give you clarity of vision. A master plan is going to give you clarity of vision, so that now you know, or this is where you are, looking at where you're coming from, you know where you are. Now you're going to bring together all those individuals around you, and you're going to seek to always, wherever you find there is a deficit in terms of relationship, or something that needs to be done that you don't have, then you seek to have that person. It's not a matter of a what, but it's a matter of a who. And the master plan, when you have a master plan, it gives you the ability to focus, as the leader, to focus on the things that you do best. And then you find the who are going to be able to help you to make up for the deficit, those skill sets that you do not have.
Well, that was definitely an expansive share, and I'm just going to attempt to break down some of what you said. But what I like with what you said there, Peter, is clarity of vision. I also want to add clarity of management. And just let me say this, before I expand on something you said earlier on management. In my studies, I have looked at management style from many different perspectives. In the academic world, we are taught about democratic leadership, autocratic leadership, paternalistic leadership. These are various leadership styles, all of which I think is essential. But I do believe I examined that, what I didn't see was proactive leadership. And now that we are over the many years of looking at leadership, I do believe that we must bring leadership to work hand in hand with management. And the reason I'm going to say this is because I want to expand a little bit on what management of. Sometimes you have leadership, you have the vision, you have to go out and get and make things happen. But that entire ecosystem has to be managed. And when I say management, for us, there is a face to management. What exactly is management? Because
Mm.
sometimes we hear these terms, but then you don't fully understand what
And
it
you
means.
know, Gary, if I should just underline what you're saying, because a lot of times people think that leadership and management is the same thing.
Well, that's a good point. And what I will attempt to do here today is us to explain what management is. So it will help you to understand this and perhaps give you the competitive edge. Management represents five important concepts, and one is setting objectives and planning.
Mm.
If you're going to manage anything, you need to know exactly what you action you're taking to achieve and desired end results. So it's about setting objectives and planning. The second step is organizing resources to achieve the objectives. That might be a little vague, but when we talk about organizing resources to achieve the objectives, we're talking about organizing human resources, technical resources, and capital resources. Because you set a goal to accomplish, in most cases, you have to have human, technical, and capital resources. But you didn't look at this because you just have that abstract view of what management is. So the third element that we look at is communicating and motivating. And now you have the plan. Now you understand the resource needs. You have the resource. You know communicate with them. This is the big vision. This is what we're going after. And if I'm going to use money as a form of motivation, perhaps decent salary is an essential part of the conversation. If I'm going to use benefits, fringe benefits, we call it in the HR world, I introduce fringe benefits. If, whatever it's going to take to motivate an individual, and then perhaps you may be an expert in motivation to recognize that motivation is not one size fit all because people based on their culture and their lifestyle, all of these factors influence it. And all of this represents management because if you're not looking at this, Paul, I'm going to come again. You may be shooting yourself in the legs if you don't fully understand all of this. All right. The next concept is what we call coordinating activities because you may communicate the vision, but is your corporate structure allows you to coordinate activities the way it should be coordinated. And the easy way of looking at coordination is to ensure that you understand your organization chart. Because based on your organization chart, you know who is supposed to be doing public relation, marketing, HR, market research. So all the activities is coordinated towards achieving the end results.
Gary, simple concept that individuals and we were having this discussion last night in one of the planning sessions that we're doing, the difference between goals and objectives, and sometimes we use these terminologies interchangeably, understanding that it is two separate things. So the leader is that goal oriented person. He's seeing where he wants to go, the end result of where he wants to go. But then the objectives now is how you break up that goals into smaller, manageable, day by day, step by step processes. And the leader is not the one to do the objectives. He's the one to make sure that everybody's going in the right direction. And the managers now are the ones who ensure that the objectives are met on a timely basis.
Great. I love the observation because one of the things I would normally say, the leaders may be the leader in the boardroom. And I say all leaders should work with their project management specialists. Why? Because project management specialists comes with all the skill sets that you're going to talk about. They're going to document the vision, and then they're going to break it down into the respective parts, and then they're going to say, boss, this is a nice project. This is the completion criteria. This is the timeline that we can propose to the public. This is the cost of the project. Right. This is the human resource. The project management specialist is going to be able to listen to that entire vision and break it down because they're mastered at what we call the WBS, the work breakdown structure. So I love the point that you would have bring it there. Now, the last point that I want to make in terms of what management is that the last element of management is monitoring and controlling. And those two essential things is so important. And to break it down in simple terms, you do your New Year resolution. That's setting what you want to accomplish. But again, Peter, because they do not have, most people setting their New Year resolution don't have their WBS. They don't have a work breakdown structure. So you have nothing to monitor.
Yeah.
All right. You don't know how, the goal that you set, you don't know the human resource that you need to move it forward, the technical resource to move it forward, the capital resource to move it forward. You don't have this breakdown in a systematic approach. So what are you monitoring? You just have a goal.
Right.
A vision. So the monitoring means that you're looking at the actions that are being taken, you're assessing strengths and weaknesses, and control means that you're ensuring that you have control over the process that you have created. And Peter, you talk a lot about systems, structures, processes, and systems. The monitoring and controlling says to you that whatever systems say you must accomplish, that's what we're going to monitor and control. This is our structure and our scope. Don't let's go outside of the structure and the scope, monitoring and controlling that entire process. And all of this is what's going to give you the competitive edge. So I love that point that you would have shared, Peter. I just had to expand a little bit on management. But let's break into leadership. I mean, I think that leadership is essential. While sometimes I believe a lot of intellectual authors behind leadership is talking about leadership, it could be an abstract term.
Yeah.
All right. Many persons, you ask the average person what is leadership, and if they perhaps are not on the study and one of the guru, they're going to give you 20 different answers. But the answer in itself, something you talk about, Peter, is substance. So it's I think leadership is essential.
I think a simple way, Gary. I think a simple way to understand leadership, and I discovered this several years ago when I was a part of a team where the individual that started the team, he left, and I had to be asked, and then he left and then wanted me to carry out his responsibility. And it is at that point I begin to question myself on, what is it that's where are we now, and what is it? And the question that pops out to me then that I had to ask myself is, Peter, where are you going? And that's the leadership question right there. Leadership, what is leadership? That's the question. Where are you going? Because leadership means that you are leading to go somewhere. Now, the concept of leadership then takes into consideration that if somebody is leading, then the possibility that there are somebody who is following. But even before you have a follower, a leader, and this is where I was introduced to personal leadership, and where I have to realize that I am leading myself before I can lead anybody else. I have to start leading myself. So I have got to know where I am going. And if I'm going to go somewhere where network is concerned, chances are that I might not know how to get there. And this is where the network is concerned now, finding a leader, finding somebody, a mentorship, finding somebody who have been down the road that I'm going, who can lessen the pitfalls or minimize the hurdles. So if I'm going to find somebody who I'm going to follow, then it must mean that, number one, they are going in the same direction that I want to go. And if that person now is going in the direction that I've already predetermined where I'm going, then it is now useful for me to follow that person. But the minute they change, if I don't know where I'm going, then I won't know even when they're going in the wrong direction. And I think that's where leadership, the understanding of leadership, is, where are you going? That's the question. If you want to find out if you're a leader or what leadership is, it is the number one question. Where are you going?
Well, I love how you break it down. Leaders lead, and that is perhaps we might want to say the essence of leadership is leading. Whether you're leading from the front or you're leading from behind, is leadership. No, you smile because the Jews, traditionally they lead from behind, and they have a reason why they lead from behind. I mean, later on we'll probably go into the historical perspective on that. They have, a way of protecting themselves. Where people smile when I say lead from the front or behind. But leadership, I do believe, for me, and I respectfully say this, it requires a high dose of management skills, because in leading, it's about leading people. And if you do not understand personality type, all right, you do not know when to use autocratic leadership. You do not know when to use democratic processes or autocratic processes in your leadership skills. And one of the things that I've learned about leadership at the academic level is that no one type of leadership may empower you to be the best leader, because you have so much of personality types that you're dealing with. And in a democratic process, there might be certain people that you lead and that don't comply with the democratic process. So you have to instill some degree of autocratic leadership. It's tough, to accept it. But in my life experience, I've seen this. Some people you say, let's go there, my friend. And you think that they're going to get up and go. You got to say, get up and go now. Let's make this thing happen. So it requires a certain degree of management skills. And management skills is about understanding people. It's about connecting with people. It's about you being able to use all the various tools that is necessary to achieve a desired end results.
It's
a complex task. But
I got hung up a while ago.
Go ahead.
I have this concept of leading from behind, because I've had some persons who have been leading from behind in my, when I was committed to an organization, and I felt that the person, was leading from behind, what I call, and I kind of call it half-side leadership. Half-side leadership is that individual who, half side is where football is concerned, where it's a strategy where the defenders, they would go so close to the where the attacker from the next team can become. They move away from the goal, the goal that they are covering, and they go closer down to the half line mark. So as soon as an individual catching the ball past the defenders, it's half side, because there are certain rules. So what I find is half-side leadership. And this is where I got the hung up, where leading from behind, because I've seen some individuals who they are pointers, So that's what I'm wondering. What is because they're individuals who just point, but they don't actually model. So they lead from the behind, maybe somebody is also listening and saying, what is that? So you mentioned a group of persons. What did you say use that methodology?
The Jews. Study the Jewish community. And let me give you a brief explanation. We talked early on in our broadcast about guerrilla warfare. And in guerrilla warfare is when you see your competition is having a competitive edge, you can see them because they're leading from the front. So you understand all of the strategies that they're using. When you lead from the back, it enables the public not necessarily to see who is at the helm. So you don't know who to attack.
Okay.
You don't know what you're undermining, because the man from the back, he's the man that has the great vision. And he's going to say, hey, I have the disposable income, like the great minds.
Mm.
I'm going to invest in this process. While I may have a trust, you're going to be the front figure. They're going to like you. They're not going to attack you. It's going to achieve the business objective. I'm funding the entire process from behind.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
that's
I
not
am
exclusive
telling
to
you
the Jews,
exactly.
though, isn't it? I don't think that's exclusive to the Jews, because I've discovered that it's a wise thing that any and everybody ought to, depending on what they're doing. So kind of wondering, because in the world in which we're living in now, to be safe in certain things, you don't want to actually be out there at all times, because there are certain things that you need to keep.
The
um
yeah, yeah. The easy understanding of this, the undercover boss. If anyone ever look at the undercover boss, you're working with the boss, but you just don't know it's the boss that you're working with. But guess what? He's having all of the insight of how the organization is operated, because he comes to the ground. He helped you pack the bag. He helped you interface with the consumers, and you just don't know it's him. But guess what? He's having inside information of how every single staff is operating. You drop your guard. So there's so much more to leading from behind. And we'll go deeper into all of this as time progresses. Today is just to really help people to understand how to get the competitive edge. I think, when you project yourself as, you know, I am the boss. When you're among your staff, sometimes all guards are up, so you never really get to understand the impulse of the organization. But staff talk among themselves. I really love this organization, or I wish the boss could look at this. Some of those things they may never tell you. So dropping the guard, being the leader from behind, can mean a whole lot of things.
mhm.
All right, is how you apply these techniques again to achieve your competitive advantage. And one of the things that I would always say in business, you need data. All right. Data enables you to be market oriented, it enables you to be market sensitive and market responsive. There are many persons that are being market responsive without the data. That means you're not responding to needs and wants and expectations. You're simply responding. And there's not a way to attain and maintain your competitive edge.
Sorry
So
about
that's
the
a
break a while ago. My battery was dying. I had to go run catch my charger.
got you. So Paul, the financial guy, your thoughts. I think leadership is a dynamic subject. I I do not believe we can exhaust conversation around leadership. I believe it's so important. One of the things that I talk about a lot, Paul and Peter, is that in your organization, you need to have a financial expert. And I'm not talking about the accountant, and I'm not attempting to hit the accountant. You need to have someone that understand financial instrument, that understand money. Someone like Paul that would say to you, don't take a trade line. Let's talk about, equity financing, because equity has these competitive edges that is going to work to your advantage.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts, Paul?
Well, my thoughts are agreement with everything that you gentlemen have said. Sometimes we all disagree amongst the three of us, and we're not
Yeah.
afraid to let each other know because we're friends. But I can't find a thing to disagree with what you said at all. Uh, I'll just stress the main bullet points. Leadership is vital. Proper leadership is vital because, man, one mistake's a mistake, and everybody makes mistakes. But if you have a weak leader or a leader who doesn't have all the information because he didn't study, and that was a choice, you didn't study, You didn't look into this? You didn't go to somebody who has the information and ask them about this? Those mistakes can just compound. All of a sudden, you got 12 mistakes and everything's falling apart. So it's better to get a consultant at the beginning
Right.
to not get to the point to where things fall apart instead of getting help when the ship is sinking.
Right. Paul, something you mentioned in one of our earlier conversation, and I just fell in love with that. And you mentioned it earlier today, but it is for us to understand the cost of money. And when I heard that terminology, when you mentioned it, it kind of, it's one of those statements that you think of money, but you think of money solving the cost for other things, not thinking that money itself has a cost. So that is, and I think of it in terms of, where leadership is concerned, especially where personal leadership is concerned, is that what the personal leader, when you begin to think about your personal life and you're leading your life, first of all, leading you before leading anybody else, there's a cost for life. There's a cost just for sitting around, even if you do nothing. If you just sit, the person who lives under the bridge, there is still a cost for where he's under. Somebody built the bridge. So there's a cost. Somebody had to build it so that he can be underneath it. He's pulling a hand cart. Somebody had to make that hand cart for him to have it in the first place. So that has always been something quite intriguing. That there's a cost. There is a cost.
I've thought about this before, Peter. Let's say you're trying to you spend all your money. You got no money left, so you're going to be you plan on not going out for a week. You got 2 weeks till payday because you spent everything, and you plan on not going out and doing things. So you're not going to go out to dinner. You're not going to go out and shoot pool with your friends. But when you drive, you say, well, I'm not going to go out, but I'm going to run over and visit Frank. It costs you gas.
Yes, right.
And gas ain't cheap, right? If you're going to go visit two friends, well, you paid to do it. And that's fine. That's the way it is, I guess. If you ride a bicycle, it costs you time.
Right.
Everything costs something.
Right. And that point that you mentioned, the cost for time, because time, we can always, multiply everything else that we have around us. We can always, duplicate whatever else is around us. But time is there. You can't duplicate time. You can't, you can maximize the use of it, but we're not getting any more. So there's a cost, even just for the time that we have to do. We're sitting here and we're doing this. There's a cost that is associated with us. I love that. I really love that.
The cost for me and you is lack of sleep. Gary gets up early. That's our cost. Hey, did you guys ever hear
the benefits outweigh the cost, right?
The benefits outweigh this cost. That is true. Now, did you guys ever hear of the man? This was a very motivational video. 86,400 seconds in a day.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't quote it all, but if you got a bank that's going to credit you $86,400 every day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you don't spend it, you never get it back. Time is gone.
Right.
Time's the most expensive thing we all have.
Mm-hmm.
On that particular point, and Paul, I could recall in project management and management, we studied time management. But in my later days, as you develop critical thinking, you begin to ask yourself, while there is subject written on time management, can we manage time? We can't manage something that we can't control.
Right.
Time is ticking.
Right.
What we can do is manage ourselves.
Manage ourselves.
To optimize the results that we're having in the day.
Yeah.
So we'll look at that and we'll do a program on Mythbusters, because I can't manage the elephant, man. I
Right.
can't. Time, I have no control over time. So how
Right.
am I going to manage that? It goes against the whole principle and
Right.
tenets of
Ooh, that's heavy.
management.
Wow, that's heavy.
It
That's
is.
great. Can't manage it, can't control it, but
I,
you followed right up. You're like, but you can manage yourself.
yes,
Ooh.
you can. You can.
And you see,
Um,
and what, even just that what you said, Gary, when we develop the right um mindset toward a thing and to define it in its correct way, immediately you begin to see a process that will work. Because for the person who thinks that, okay, I'm gonna manage time, no wonder why we're doing a poor job in trying to manage time, because as you mentioned, time cannot be managed. It's like one of those thoughts that, a person thinks that they can break the law. I mean, not man-made laws now, but
the law of nature.
universal laws. We cannot
Mhm.
break universal laws. We break ourselves against universal laws. So the concept of managing time, we're always going to fail in time management because it cannot be done. But now when you begin to think, okay, now how do I manage myself in relation to time? Now I have
Peter,
a
now
set of.
cutting you. Now cutting you on the
Mhm.
issue of time management. I think it's profound because here is where master planning comes into play, Peter.
Mhm.
Because you can't manage time, you can't control that. You have
Right.
absolutely no control over that. But with a master plan, you
Exactly.
can manage yourself, you can
Thank
organize
you.
your life towards the goals and objectives that you want to
Right.
accomplish. All right. And there's where you come in, with a master plan. I
Mhm.
mean, you look deep at, what is personal life master planning? What is, family life master planning? You want to achieve more in your personal life. Tell
Right.
me about your self actualization master plan. You want to achieve more in your family life.
Mhm.
You might be going through some type of challenges.
Right.
You know, Tell me about your master plan.
Right.
And
Right.
possibly, as if you're like Paul and I, who are humanitarian, you might be saying, how can I bring family life master planning into my organization so
Mhm.
as to ensure that my workforce achieve more out of family planning?
Right.
Because a happy family is
Mm.
going to be more productive. A more productive workforce and happy workforce is going to increase productivity, increase profitability, help me attain my competitive edge in business. So all of these things are strategies. So you have a lot of work to do ahead, my friend, in terms of amplifying conversation around the master plan. Paul, all to you.
I just wanted to, something came to mind as you were speaking. When we say that I'm going to spend my time with you, I'm going to give you my time.
Mhm.
No, you're not giving them your time. You're giving them yourself, because that's all you can give. I'll
Mhm.
give you me. I can't give you time.
You don't know on time.
I can't chop it off and
You
chunk out
can
a
give
pound of time.
one. Right.
I mean, I can theoretically say I'll spend 30 minutes with you, but that is, by definition, you are giving them yourself. So
Right.
that's a beautiful thing, because every time somebody takes time, I'm not even going to say that, makes the effort to make themselves available to
Available.
you for a purpose, that's valuable.
Right. It is. It is. It is.
All right. I wanted to share our last thoughts on leadership and business startup. We didn't give a whole lot on that. But what I will do just to set the stage for that, then we'll wrap up. In my experience, I've worked with many, many business startup across the world, and it's not much different. I've worked in with startup in developing economy, middle income economies, and developed economies. And I find that there's common threads. I am dealing with developing economy and middle income economy that will talk to me about access to capital. But I'm also interfacing with business startup in developed economies like the US and others that are still talking to you about access to capital.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to access, although in developed economy, you have debt, equity, credit, creative financing, hard money lending, and I can go on and on in terms of the instruments that are out there. And I do believe that leadership in this regard is important. There are many persons that I see may have great vision to start a business. And I think it makes sense in your leadership style to attract the right people on your team. Is to remember that business success is not me, myself, and I. It's a team game. It's like a sports
Mm-hmm.
where you have, you know, your front guy, you have the middle, you have your team. And if in business leadership you're not thinking about building a team, you may not be the financial expert, as Peter and Paul would have said earlier. You're the visionary. And I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good here. But I'm going to bring in Paul, who has expertise in finance. And he's not going to only develop the cash flow projection. He's not going to develop the cash flow game plan, because the cash flow projection must coincide with the cash flow game plan.
Mm-hmm.
A projection without a game plan is not a projection. And I'm going to go deeper into that later on. You must have the game plan as to how I'm going to make this thing cash flow. But Paul, you know, you're the visionary. I'm the visionary. I know nothing about cash flowing. I come to Paul. And I think that's great leadership. When you're able to recognize the cost of running a business, the dynamics of running a business, and recognizing early in the game that you don't have to have all the skill sets.
Wow.
There are people, one thing, there are people who are managing businesses or owning businesses that they really don't understand that business ecosystem. But they have the business because they're smart enough to say, I'm not going to allow capital to sit with inflation and lose value. I'm not going to allow it to sit in a 0.1% interest bearing account. I'm going to find creative ways to put that funds to work. So I have an idea. I'm going to call Paul. I'm going to bring my team. I'm going to bring Peter. And these guys are going to make it work. I'm going to lead from behind. And I think there's this leadership even with startup. I think if startup is to really widen the scope, and again, this is why we have the bestseller portal. You can go to the bestseller portal right now and you can get books on business. All right. One of the books that we have there right now is Master the Sales Communication Process. Cash Flow is King. All right. Managers Toolkits. Get these books and start to read and figure things out for yourself, or reach out to Paul or Peter or myself and have a one-on-one conversation of practical steps that you can take to move your business in the right direction. The last thing that you want to do is to start a business, going through your startup phase, but never break through your startup phase. Because in my experience, Peter, I've seen persons start a business 10 years ago and it's still in the startup phase.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It is still in the startup phase. Mm-hmm. There's where leadership comes in. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to know everything. Perhaps the only thing that you might want to know, I want to cash flow optimize, and I'm going to build a trusted team that's going to help me do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think there's where leadership comes in. Yeah, Paul, you were going to say something, but I caught your thoughts.
You know how we always have great conversations, and as you say something, or as Peter says something, or I say something, you guys will think we all kind of jive off of each other, right? Man, I got a perfect real life example story of leaders leading leaders willing to take information. And here's the exact story of doing it right. Now, and I'm going to give a shout out: Environmental Living Industries, www.eli.inc, eli.inc. They're building a 12-ton per hour industrial hemp fiber processing factory in Texas. They're one of our clients. As you guys know, equipment financing, real estate financing, Patriot Business Finance Consultants, that's me and Bob, my business partner, Bob. When we do capital raises, my role is the scout. I know my guys in Cleveland. I know their programs. I know what the cost of it is. I know how to explain it. I know it inside and out. And that's what I do. And I bring people to them, and they do the work. But here's what's going on with Eli. Okay, here's the description: Brian Wilson, Thomas Hoffman, Kyle. Can't pronounce it. Like, it's early. I'm tired. I'm blanking.
It's okay.
Yeah.
We're only human, right?
Yeah. So Brian and Kyle Huttenlocker, Kyle Huttenlocker. I know that name. I've known the guy for 3 years. Okay. Brian and Kyle were soldiers, and not just soldiers, Army Rangers. It's a different level of a soldier. Okay. Thomas Hoffman. Brian and Thomas are founders of the company. Kyle is their CEO. Thomas is a fire chief, a fire rescue. Okay, he's a confident leader. All right, he's a fire chief. He's a leader. So they're the founders of Eli. They connected with my guys in Cleveland, who are 2 leaders. They've raised $9 billion in 16 years in business together. And that doesn't count when they were big business people in the 80s. They're leaders. So you got a whole team of alphas coming together and not fighting and loving each other. You got Eli. They hired my guys in Cleveland to do this, to do the capital raise. They're taking advice, but they're taking action also. The way the process works is Bill and staff, they help you build the business when you engage with the capital raising them. Typically, capital raising groups raise the money. They don't act as your project managers. They don't do the work. They don't do the work for you. And work needs to be done before checks will be written. In today's environment, the business has to be built.
You're right.
Especially for a startup. I mean, it has to be, supply chain has to be built and locked down. You have to sell your entire first year's offtake for fiber factories. That's a lot of work. So, you got Army Rangers and a fire chief coming
But
in.
Paul, one thing I want to say, not cutting you, Paul.
No, go.
You may say it's a lot of work, but I believe that it's a test of your commitment to do business.
Oh,
If you can start that business and you start that business with 1 year inventory that would have already been purchased, man, you got cash flow.
mm-hmm.
And how hard it is. Anyone that's going to come to you and say, I need capital, but I don't want to do that legwork, you can't fund them.
It's impossible. It has to be done, and somebody has to do it.
Exactly. Go on. Sorry to cut you. I just want to
No,
make that.
you didn't cut me off. That's very valuable to add. So I just, as you were talking, what I recognized, and I've recognized this before with these guys, there's a whole team of leaders, and Bill and staff. I can't think of a time they've been wrong, but they adjust when market conditions change. They pivot and adjust. They take a different angle. They've always got an answer because they're so well experienced. There's always an answer for any problem. There totally is. And then you've got the guys, working hard, traveling across the country, engaging with farmers in person, not on the phone, not on the Zoom. They feel it's better to do it that way. These guys are putting everything into it. If you put everything into something, you're going to get results. Mm-hmm. And if you put half of what needs to be into what you need to get done, you're either going to get no results or it's going to take you twice as long. I don't know if that plugged in, but it plugged in for me. I thought it related.
100%, Paul. It makes sense because what I would want to close with as well is the fact that every individual were born to solve a problem.
Hmm.
And the world, why the world is is full of problems today, because what we find is that most persons do not know the problem that they were born to solve, so their problem is still lingering out there. But the more we begin to discover the problems that we were born to solve, then we get to work. And this is what the gentleman that you mentioned, alpha leaders, they come together, they saw some problem, they saw some challenges, and they brought their skill sets together and were determined to solve those sets of problems, and they do whatever it took for them. It was a hard business to start, to maintain, to facilitate, but they came together and they had no time to be scruffling with each other. They just got it done. And this is one of the things that I try to get individuals to understand around the master plan program as well. And what we have done is, when we understand the problem, and this is an issue, once you understand the problem is when the problem is not understood.
Hmm.
But when the problem is understood, then you know what you need to do to get to solve it. The same is true when individuals do not understand themselves. When we do not understand ourselves, we're a confused bunch. This is why there's so much crisis and turmoils in our worlds, is because people are trying to make it through life and they do not understand themselves. And so one of the simple processes that we do, where our service in getting people to write their master plan and to develop a system, is that we start with individuals to say, okay, then, all right, you know where you are, you have an idea of where you want to go, but here's how you're going to decide or define what your master plan, the development program, is all about. We encourage people to go back in their life story, say, go back to their earliest memory, 5 years increments, go back to your first thought as a child, your first realization as a person, and build 5-year increments from that. Write everything that you can write, detail all your life, all the way to who you are today. And we call it a legacy chronicle. We call that you're chronicling your legacy, because once you begin to understand your life and see who you are, there's so much more that can be done now in terms of understanding how you get to where you are and where you want to go from there. And that, in essence, is where the master plan starts. And in alluding to the gentleman that you mentioned, each of these persons, they know the problem that they know their skill sets, they know the problem that they were designed to solve. And so they were able to fit with each other very well to accomplish the task that they set out to accomplish.
Wow, Peter. I every time you talk, man. I mean, I'm not saying this for the audience. I'm so happy to be your friend and impressed. I love working with you guys, man. You lay it out. You lay that knowledge out, and you do it in such an excellent way. I appreciate you.
Let me stop this alarm, please.
Talking on mute. I'm talking on mute. Yeah. Based on everything that is being said, and as we look at today's topic, leadership, something that is clear to me in business and in life, we are either influenced by the environment around us, which is not necessarily a bad thing in all cases, or we can also influence the environment. And I do believe that the true test of leadership is when we rise to the occasion in our true essence, in our commitment to touch some element of self-actualization, to say, I want to lay the foundation in business to start to influence desired outcome in my life, in my community, wherever you are. All right. My last words, few last words I want to say to rising stars in business. It doesn't matter where you came from. You got the potential to achieve greatness. It doesn't matter where you're at. You're not defined by where you're at.
Right.
You're defined by your mindset. You can wake up right here, right now, and you can say, hey, I'm going to take my life into my hands and I'm going to become the author of my destiny. The only thing that is stopping you is you. That, there's an old saying, if there's a mountain, you either dig a hole through that mountain and you climb through it.
Mhm.
If there's a shark infested water, you can't swim over it. Perhaps build a boat and
Mhm.
get
Mhm.
across it. But the last thing you want to do is to remain stuck.
Do nothing right.
And that to me is a true test of leadership, a true
Leadership.
test of character. And Paul, you said something in a few previous broadcasts. Um, Persons who have a military background tend to demonstrate a certain degree of leadership that the average persons don't. I know in the Caribbean, Guyana in particular, they were the national service. And perhaps, I don't know the strategic agenda at that time, but perhaps things that we should start looking at is leadership boot camp. And leadership for me is not just the application of the theory, it's the application of the practical tools. And we would always say on this platform, when you do things, it's different than when you know the theory of doing things. There's a certain degree of knowledge and awakening that comes at when you do things that really helps you to become that leader that you ought to be. And again, what again is why we have developed our programs 72% theory, 48% practical, because you must have that practical experience. So when you go to that organization, you're not just going with theory, you go knowing how to access capital, you go knowing how to build your master plan, you go knowing how to, you know, mitigate debt, you know it. And I think that, it would be a brilliant thing if we can have just this transition from tremendous focus on the theory into combining theory and practice. I think a certain degree of leadership can be aborted from there that will really help that individual to self actualize. In fact, I'm going to say it here, the application of the concept is essential to helping every human being to self actualize. You can't self actualize on the theory.
I got so many examples come to mind.
Go ahead.
Karate. I love it.
Oh, I was asking, what form of karate you do? I do Shotokan.
Same here.
Shotokan.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
So theory is one step sparring, no contact, light contact. One step sparring, 3-step sparring, prearranged, sitting, standing, hair grab, walking, self-defense. Those are all staged. It's a dance. There's no resistance. There's some karate schools are more hardcore than others, and the ones that aren't hardcore are called lightweight. Matter of fact, they're Bud Light, and you know what Bud Light did recently, so they're Bud Light. All right. Now,
Yeah.
but a black belt who's been studying for 6 years, and he's got a black belt around his waist, holding his pants up. A regular person who's a boxer will crush him, because a boxer knows theory, but they also know what it's like to get hit hard.
Right.
What?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
typical karate schools. Now I'm not gonna lay the blanket over at everybody. There's very solid karate schools who believe in contact. Matter of fact, there's karate styles, Kyokushin, which is you're practicing in class, you're going to get kicked in the head with a hook kick, and you're going to get punched in the ribs. That's a different style of karate. Most karates, it's theory. It's theory until you get hit in the face. But
Right.
boxing is not theory. Jiu-jitsu is not theory. you're going to get your arm ripped off if you don't figure out how to get out of it. So I think that's a very solid example of
Right.
theory versus what live action.
Yeah, I think also it has to do a lot with the sensei because I could
Agree.
recall 20 plus years ago when I hit the dojo, I was just studying Heian Shodan, and which is the Kata one.
Hmm.
And while I was doing Heian Shodan, the guy had me doing Komate, which is sparring, and that is not the theory. I could recall I gave a blow, but then, I receive a blow and it comes straight to my face. So it had you thinking, you got to constantly keep thinking how to defend yourself. This is literal guerrilla warfare. All
Hmm.
right. If you don't understand, study your opponent and understand your opponent, you can't really defend yourself against him because you don't understand his fighting style. What I also found also is that even in the theory, the one-step sparring, the two-step sparring, the three-step sparring, what it does, it helps the body itself to adjust itself
Hmm.
to eventuality. But you're right. I think that you want an outlet to let it out, and there's where I think Kumite comes into play, where you're actually applying those principles um, in competition
Yeah.
and even in the dojo.
Yes, I agree, but you've seen it.
But not all senseis do that.
No,
Sometimes
no,
they,
no,
they stagger that process out for you.
no. I completely agree with everything you said.
And yeah,
The only thing I would add to it is, I mean, you've seen dojo fighting. Either the instructor is hardcore or he's lightweight. If he's hardcore, it's okay to get hit. People want to get hit. They want to get into the mix and do it. But if it's a lightweight dojo, then they if you step forward, it's not real. You've seen it. You step forward, you do a jab, and you take 2 steps back. That will never happen anywhere in the world except right in the confines of this building. It doesn't make sense to teach somebody to do that. You're teaching them the opposite of reality.
Yeah.
Paul, I'm laughing, right? We are very comical and funny when we get ready, right? I am thinking, I'm laughing here based on everything that we're talking about. Here is where you are training combat sports, but you want to be this fashion designer. It doesn't coincide, right?
Yes,
You're
it
gonna get
doesn't
punched,
coincide.
get rough up, right?
Yeah.
um, I have my two kids, and one day somebody called me and they say, your two kids are fighting outside. They weren't fighting, but they do martial arts. And what they were doing is literally punching the heck out of each other as part of their combat training. What they're doing, they're preparing to go to the ring and take a punch. But the person looking on didn't necessarily see it that way. And guess what? Those guys are bad. Those guys get in the ring and they bring home only gold. They're both black belt, but they are bad because they're not afraid of taking a punch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what
You have to be afraid when they hit you.
and you see that in too many dojo sparring sessions where you turn away or it's weak. You step forward and then you bounce back. That's not how anybody fights.
Right.
Um,
And even to the people who are listening now, and they might be wondering, these guys are, what are they talking about? But we're talking about life. We're
It is like,
about, yeah, we're
and
talking about where they are.
yeah, and the thing about it, what we're talking about, you look at it, a lot of persons who have sports training, they're oriented into this. They tend to be more focused in life and they tend to be high achievers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also and that's what we want to bring out.
mhm.
While we have sports in some of the school systems, perhaps the strategic focus and the psychology behind it is how we can truly optimize it for it to transition not only in a nice sports career but how it can help these young people to leverage this knowledge, this skill set, this leadership skills into every aspect of their lives. And that's
All right.
what we
I got to. Somebody's reaching out to me that I have to get to them now. But my closing remark is this: that with designing the personal life master plan, and why we utilize a concept that we call the Legacy Chronicles program, where we pull people. So while it, what you're talking about now in terms of the balance between the theory and the practical, because we're not planning just for the sake of planning. We're not just designing for the sake of designing. So what we do when we're helping people to design their personal life master plan, we get them to actually publish their book, to write their biography. So we ask them certain questions. And in them designing their personal life master plan, the end result of them designing their personal life master plan, automatically the individuals that we work with eventually become an author. And once you are an author, now you have set the stage for so many other processes that can come out. Because what we do find is when individuals begin to look at themselves to see where they're coming from, what we discover, it's a lot of there's a lot of hidden or issues, or not even issues. There are issues that they have overcome. And this is what we're talking about, even when you mentioned that individuals who are sport oriented, or individuals who have been through the military, that they tend to be more disciplined when it comes to business, in business. And this is what we discover, where individuals who have gone through our program in writing their life story, when they look at themselves and they discover how many mountains and difficulties that they have overcome, they tend to begin to see themselves differently. And they begin to realize that if I could have overcome all of those things to get to where I am to today, certainly whatever it is that I'm dealing with right now, and whatever it is that is to come tomorrow, they can also overcome it. And so we encourage individuals to write that plan, to look back, go back into your life, take a deep dive into your own life, go back to your childhood, go back to your earliest memory, and put that into 5-year blocks. Every 5 year coming up to where you are, what happened between if your earliest memory was 5 years old, what happened between 5 to 10? Write all of that out. What happened between 10 to 15, 15 to 20, right where you are. And when you begin to take that out and you put it on paper, then you begin to see yourself differently. It's as if you will become reintroduced to yourself, and there's so much latent skills that can be used to empower the world, the individuals, the world around you.
What I'm getting there is to do your life audit.
Life audit, perfect.
Life audit. Now, on that point, I want to say this. The reality of life is that life is tough, and this has nothing to do with being rich or being poor. Life is tough. All right. And I'm going to say this: life can beat you down. But I want to say this to you, man. It's a part of life. Embrace it. Grow through the pain. There's two things that happens when life challenges comes at you. It beats you down and chews you up and throws you in a corner, or it makes you tougher.
Yeah. Indeed.
Be the one to be tougher. Make a decision that this is a stepping stone. This is a part of the process. And smile when tough time comes. I smile. It's a part of life.
Okay, I'm smiling right now. I am smiling.
You're smiling on the inside. You're smiling on us. That's smile on it.
That smile look like a bit like Freddy Krueger, right?
Oh man. The worst thing is I can agree with you.
Oh my God, Peter Smile is looking like Batman a little bit, right? He's a superhero, right?
Yeah, that,
So,
this is the Brooklyn smile right here, man.
all right, my guys, you do guys have a wonderful day. I really enjoy coming and sitting here with you. You know, you can wake up, or you can wake up to make impact, and this to me is waking up to make impact. And we can do this on and on. But of course, we all have to go to the ground. We have to go to the
Yes.
field. We got to go and take some jobs in the, you know, do take some jobs. You know, the reality, deal with the realities of life,
Man.
to make great things happen.
Let me tell you this, guys, real quick. When I come to visit you guys in New York, I have, it's called Fist is the brand name. It's a baton training suit. It's this thick.
Okay.
He puts phone books underneath of it just for extra because it does hurt if you get hit, but I give you both permission to beat the crap out of me. And it'll be fun. Go to my Instagram, you guys. Scroll halfway down, and I've got 2 videos. They're videos trying to be funny but driving a point home. I got one guy in the suit, and it says, "Bank says no," and he scoots back, and I come.
Paul say yes.
Oh,
Paul say approve.
I said, "Hey, bank says no. That hurts pretty good. That hurts bad when that happens, doesn't it? What are you going to do? Let me show you how bad it hurts." And I kicked him in the zone you don't want to be kicked in. I almost slipped and said the ball. I almost slipped and said a ball kick. Oh, I just said it. So, and he, I didn't. It was more theatric, but because I hit the padding, it's a solid thud. And he's a good actor. He dropped down heavy and he moaned. It was very funny for the video. And then I got a longer one to where the bankster comes after me because I'm working with Mr. Smith. And we get into it in an alley. And that's fun. Check out both Peter and
I'll check it out.
my Instagram. Scroll down. You'll find it. When you see the guy in the big black suit that's this thick, you'll get a kick out of it. But I'll bring it, and we're going to have to get down and have some fun with it.
There we go. I'm looking forward to that.
We can share for the audience too, my friends.
All right, guys, that's been great.
Good job. Yeah, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
We do this again tomorrow, okay? You guys take care.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Later, guys. I hate to jump so quickly, but I actually have I got 9 minutes. I got a 9-minute one. Yeah, I'll bring that suit.